The winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
Hi, we're back in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Again, two-a-days. A lot of preseason action last night. Philadelphia Eagles played the New England Patriots. The one concern you have as a Philadelphia Eagle fan came to fruition again last night. Michael Vick went down with an injury to his ribs. Not serious. He's okay. However, this is something you're going to have to deal with throughout the course of the season is Michael Vick's health. And you can't win or go where you're trying to go if you're the Philadelphia Eagles without Michael Vick. And so you got to make sure that you keep this guy healthy. He's going to have to learn when to say when. In certain instances, you can't make a play. You just got to get rid of the football. He was in the pocket way too long on that play. And he just kept drifting until the rush got there and he tried to flick it. And he paid the price for it, you know. Cunningham put a nice shot on him right to those ribs, and that's all he has is a contusion on his ribs. They're just bruised, essentially. And so he'll be fine, but the Eagles looked solid last night. I mean, the Patriots didn't play anybody, so it wasn't hard to look solid. You know, and their third-round selection, Nick Foles out of Arizona, the quarterback, he looked solid last night. I was impressed with what I saw. And so they got something there. You know, he's going to have to continue to develop, learn behind Michael Vick. But he's got to be ready at moment's notice. As you can see, there's going to be, at some point this season, he's going to have to step in and play quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. No doubt in my mind. And so he's got to be ready to step up when called upon. But, again, that's preseason football. Get this out of the way now because once the regular season starts, you don't have to deal with these issues. So we move on to our lab reports for the day, and we start, again, we're in the AFC South, finishing up the AFC South. So today we start with the Indianapolis Colts. And look, this is a different team. This is not your father's Indianapolis Colts. This is not your Indianapolis Colts. If you've been a fan for the Indianapolis Colts for the last decade, you don't know the team that you're staring at. It's all new faces, top to bottom. Bill Polian, your general manager for the last 15 years, no longer there. You know, Jim Caldwell, your coach from the last 3-4 years, no longer there. You know, stalwart players, guys that were linchpins for this team, for this franchise over the last 7, 8, 9 seasons, no longer there. I'm talking Peyton Manning, of course, 15 years. Dallas Clark had been there for a while. He's out of there. Jeff Saturday, your longtime center, he's gone. You look around at Gary Brackett. It's just the list goes on and on and on of guys who have contributed to this team for an extended period of time, and they're no longer there. It's a brand new team. You know, Jim Caldwell out, Chuck Pagano in, Peyton Manning out, Andrew Luck in. It's a different team now, and so things have changed. I thought Peyton Manning said it best. He summed it up when he came back to the Colts training facility, you know, right after the season was finished, and right around that March area, and he said, I don't recognize our building right now. There's a complete and total change. And so what he was saying was, this isn't the team that I remember. This isn't the team I left in 2010. This is a whole different football team. And I don't know if I fit in here. So much has gone on. So much has changed since the last time I was in this building. It's not the same Indianapolis team. And it's not. It really isn't. And so they're a different squad. And they're going to be a different team in 2012. Let's get into the strengths of the Colts. And you talk about the strengths of the Colts, you don't have any to talk about. The Colts are a team without any strengths right now. Now, they're hoping this time next year, Andrew Luck is a strength for them. Right now, you don't have any strengths. And so the one strength the Colts had for the last decade were their defensive ends, was the ability to get to the quarterback. Dwight Freeney, Robert Mathis, those guys have been getting to quarterbacks for the last decade. They're no longer comfortable out there. They're in a different scheme. Their whole career, their entire careers, they've had their hands in the dirt, rushing after quarterbacks in that 4-3 defense. And now they're up. They don't have their hand in the ground anymore. They're in a 3-4 defense. They went from defensive ends for the last 10, 12 years to outside rush, outside linebackers in a 3-4 defense. It's a change for them. It's going to take them some getting used to. They have to get acclimated to that position. They're going to be dropping in coverage and all kinds of things that they're not used to doing. They actually have to really, really play the run now. And so I can't see their sack numbers, their production from those two guys being what it once was. And so if you're a Colts fan, that was the one strength you had that you could count on. I mean, aside from Peyton Manning and that Colts offense, that's no longer there either. And so the Colts don't have a strength to really speak of right now. So we go on to the weaknesses, and you look at this team, and the Colts are a functioning NFL football team, but they don't really have a lot of talent. I've watched the Colts several times this preseason, and Andrew Luck is the real deal. He is as advertised. This guy's going to put up some really hardy, stealthy numbers this year, and he's going to look good doing it. But he probably would be able to put up even more gaudy numbers if he had better talent around him. I mean, you look at these receivers that he has out there. Of course, he has Reggie Wayne. You can't count on Austin Collie. He got hurt again against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday night. Another concussion. How much longer is he going to be able to play football? He gets a concussion maybe every 2-3 games that he plays. At this rate, I don't see him being able to complete another 2 seasons in the NFL. He just has too much head trauma going on. And so you can't count on Austin Collie. So then you look at the next tier of guys, and you got LaVon Brazil, and you talk about T.Y. Hilton. I just don't know these guys. Who are these guys? I don't know these guys, and neither do you. And so we're going to have to find, either they're going to make themselves household names, or we're going to be asking ourselves these questions next year. Who are these guys that he's throwing the football to? The tight ends look pretty solid, and I'm referring to Allen and Fleener. But again, the talent is something that needs to be addressed, and it will be. And that's one of the things that happens when you're in a first year of a rebuilding stage, is that you inherit a roster, and you do your best to turn it over and bring in guys that you trust from wherever you came from, which Chuck Pagano did. He's brought over several Ravens with him. Of course, he brought over Tom Zibikowski, their starting safety. He brought over Corey Redding at defensive end. He's brought guys with him that he trusts. But at the end of the day, there's only so many guys you can bring with you. And then the guys that are still on the roster from what you inherited, you're just going to have to make do with what you have until you're able to get the resources necessary to get the guys you want to fit your scheme. And so they don't have a lot of talent out there right now. That's one of their glaring weaknesses, is they just don't have a lot of talent. Also, the Colts were bad on defense last year. The Colts were bad on offense last year. The Colts were a bad football team last year. Anytime you only win 2 games, you were a bad football team. And the Colts were bad on defense, 27th in sacks with 29. 30th in turnovers forced with only 17. Rush defense, 29th. Total defense, 25th. They were bad on defense. You look at the offensive side, 28th in touchdowns scored with 25. Rush offense, 26th. Pass offense, 27th. Total offense, 30th in the league. They were bad on both sides of the ball equally. They were an equal opportunity offender. They stunk on both sides of the ball. They should have been arrested and brought up on charges for being a fraudulent NFL team last year. But that's the beauty of the NFL. You stink and you get rewarded with Andrew Luck. And that's what they did. But that's a weakness. They have to be better on offense. They have to be better on defense. They have to be a better football team. Andrew Luck's addition to this team automatically makes them better in multiple areas. You move on to camp battles. And for a roster with such tremendous turnover, you expect camp battles to be all over the place. You expect their camp to be littered with camp battles. But it's not. It's not. And the reason for that is Chuck Pagano has come over and he's brought guys in with him to fill spots. He's got guys that were there before he got there, your Freeney's, your Mathises, that were there already, Pat Anger, that played good football for this team last year. And so they keep their spots. You bring in guys in free agency as well that you feel fit your mold, and then you go and draft people and you give them spots because this team didn't have talent last year. So guys that you draft in the first 2 or 3 rounds, they come in and they're looking to be starters day one. And so you think about all of those things combined, and there you have no camp battles because you have guys at spots already. And so the Colts filled a lot of these vacancies via draft, free agency, and Chuck Pagano just making sure he got his guys in that he knew he could reach out and grab and bring with him to Indianapolis, and that's what he did. So the only real camp battle they had was at defensive tackle between Muyala and Drake Nevis, and I see Muyala winning that battle. Filiapa Muyala is going to win that battle because he's a veteran. He's played the position. They trust him. Drake Nevin, the defensive tackle out of LSU, he's a younger guy. Both of these guys are relatively young. Muyala is only in his 4th season in the NFL, but he's got a feel for what Pagano is looking for. And so I think he'll hold on to that spot along the defensive line. And Nevis will definitely see time, and he'll definitely be in the rotation. And if at some point in the season he's performing better than Muyala, then he'll get in the game and start. But as of right now, I see Muyala holding on to that spot and Nevis coming off in a backup capacity right now. You move on to the rookie watch, and this draft was pretty simple. It was cut and dry. It was all about Andrew Luck. This draft was about getting the next franchise guy for the next decade and a half. They wanted to replace Peyton Manning with Peyton Manning, and they did that by selecting Andrew Luck. And so he was their first-round draft pick, the first overall pick in the 2012 NFL draft, Andrew Luck. You go to their second-round pick. They went back to Stanford again. Luck was from Stanford. They went and got his tight end, Kobe Fleener, from Stanford. He'll be catching passes from Andrew Luck for many years to come. You go to the third-round pick, and they made sure that Andrew Luck, one of his strengths in college was throwing the ball down the seams to the tight ends. And so they went and got him another tight end because, Dallas Clark is out at tight end. So they don't have any tight ends, And so they went and got Dwayne Allen from Clemson, another tight end that was a standout tight end in college football. They probably got the 2 best tight ends in the draft, the Colts did, in Allen and Fleener. And so that was one of their third-round picks. They also had another third-round selection, T.Y. Hilton, a wide receiver out of Florida International. And look, T.Y. Hilton is a guy that can run really, really fast. The question is, how consistent is he as a receiver? Can he block in the run game? Can he get open? Can he be physical enough in the passing game to create mismatches and yield dividends for the Colts? Can he make something happen after he gets the ball in his hands and get away from defenders and use that speed? I don't know. I've watched Hilton. He looks solid. He doesn't look like anything special, though. And so we'll see. He's a rookie. He needs time to mature. And we'll see. 5th-round selection, the Colts went and took offensive tackle Josh Chapman from Alabama. And he's a guy that he's going to come in and he's not going to start right away. But in time, this will be the Colts starting left or right tackle. He played at Alabama. He was solid at Alabama, but he's not overwhelming. His talent is not something that jumps off the page at you. This is why he's a 5th-round selection. So, again, the Colts just looking to build depth. That's something that you need to do. They need to get talent first. Then you build depth. But, really it doesn't matter which order you get it in. When you're a franchise looking to build from the ground up, one of the first things you need to do is either acquire talent or acquire depth. You want both ultimately in the end. And so it doesn't really matter which way you do it. You just need to find a way to do it. And so they're going to be doing that through the draft. Also in the 5th round, they took the running back out of Mississippi State, Vic Ballard. This is a guy I watched last year. Very strong, very powerful runner. Not as powerful as you would think he is for his size. He's a very low-to-the-ground, built, stocky guy. And so you would think he would be like a small dump truck, but he's not. He does run with a low pad level, but he doesn't look to run people over. He does look to fall forward when he runs, though, and so he'll be a good addition. I liked him in that Pittsburgh Steelers game. He got a lot of action, a lot of carries. I thought he acquitted himself well, and so we'll see what he does and what he brings to the table for the Colts in the 2012 season. Their 6th-round selection. I've seen too much of this guy. I've seen a lot more of him than I'm probably supposed to be seeing at this point. That means they probably have some injuries along that wide receiving corps because I'm seeing too much of Levon Brazil thus far in this season. And I'm not saying that he's bad or anything. It's just that I'm seeing too much of this guy. I'm seeing him early and often. And he's got speed to burn again. Receiver out of Ohio. Again, a lot of speed. Another smallest receiver. They need to get some bigger receivers in here. A lot of these guys are 5'11", 5'10", can run really fast. That's great, but get this man some targets that are 6'2", 6'3", 6'1", that he can throw the football to and create and have a presence in that secondary against corners and safeties and go up and make plays for Andrew Luck. These receivers were a little careless with the football, costing Luck interception in the game against the Steelers over the weekend. And so he needs more production and more consistency out of his receivers. He's going to get that out of Reggie Wayne. That's no problem. But they need more guys to step up. And there's a lot of young guys on this roster. Again, this is a roster full of young, can't say talent, just young guys, young stuff. And so we got to see if these guys are going to mature into talented receivers in this league. Levon Brazil, it might be somebody to look out for. I've been seeing too much of him, though. 7th-round selection, and the Colts were, again, building depth. They were busy in the 7th round. Normally teams, they take a 7th-round flyer on someone, but they're not probably going to make the roster. In this case, the Colts had 3 selections in the 7th round. I wouldn't be surprised if 2 or 3 of these people made the roster. I mean, that's how you build depth, but in a situation when you're looking to start all over and you're building your team from the bottom up, 7th-round picks are just as important as 3rd-round picks. Their first was Justin Anderson, the tackle out of Georgia. Again, another guy that they're going to look to develop maybe down the road. He could be a starter in this league. If not, depth. Again, depth is a key word. After talent, you need depth. And so they're going to be building depth. Defensive end Tim Fugger out of Vanderbilt. This might be the one that does not have a shot to make the team. He's one of these high motor guys. He's going to give you everything he's got. Not a lot in that cupboard, though. Not a lot in there, as far as talent is concerned. But again, high motor guy, high energy guy, going to give you everything he's got when he gets on the football field. And as a coach, you start with that. You give me that, I can work with you. And so maybe he'll be somebody that Chuck Pagano likes and takes a liking to. And maybe he makes the practice squad. Maybe he makes the team. Who knows? Chandler Harnish, the Mr. Irrelevant from the 2012 draft. He was the last player taken in the draft. And so he's someone that could potentially vie for a position on this team. He's an interesting guy out of Northern Illinois. He's got all the intangibles. He's got the requisite size and arm strength for the NFL. It's just all about him getting the reps and mentally being sharp enough and focused to pick up the NFL playbook and to be able to perform when he gets the opportunity, because he's going to be the third quarterback right now. He's got a chance to make this team as the third quarterback. And if he can show the coaches that he's someone that they could grow with, maybe he could be the backup behind. Look, you want this backup. If you don't have a shot of starting in the National Football League, the best job that anyone could have is behind Andrew Luck, because he seems like a guy who's not going to get injured, and you're going to get a free pass. You're going to get free money. You're going to get free lunch for 15 years. Probably not as long. If you're Chandler Harnish, maybe you get it for 15 years. You'll be that guy that's behind Peyton Manning that never has to play, but except in the preseason, and show them, hey, I'm good enough to stick around. You don't have to go shopping for another quarterback. Jim Sorgi. Think of Jim Sorgi. His name comes to mind as a terrible quarterback who got a pass because Peyton Manning never got hurt, so he never got to get exposed in the league. Why not be that guy for 15 years? If it's available. I mean, everybody wants to play, but hey, if your shot of making the NFL is a long one, why not take advantage of this opportunity that's right in front of you to get a free check? All right, moving on to the experiment, and I dubbed this experiment Unfamiliar Colts. And that's because we don't know these guys. This is a brand new football team with a brand new philosophy, with a brand new head coach who's going to do things his way. When's the last time you seen the Colts be a run-heavy offensive football team? Let me give you a chance to think about that for a second. I'm going to stop you because you can't think of the last time the Colts were a run-heavy football team. It's been a long time, ever since Peyton got there back in 1998 or so. This team has been primarily a passing football team, and they went as far as 18's arm would take them. And so this is going to be a drastic change. And not to say that Andrew Luck won't pass, because he's going to do his fair share of passing the football, but they are going to run the football in Indianapolis in 2012 and moving forward. And so it's going to be interesting to see just how different this team looks. We already know from a personnel standpoint, they're not the same football team. We already know that. From the head coaching position and from all the coaching positions, they're not the same football team. Even in the GM box, they're not the same football team. Bill Polian is no longer there. He's gone. So this is a different team now. So they're the unfamiliar Colts right now, and that's why this experiment is titled as such. Let's move on to the research question. Is can't-miss prospect Andrew Luck ready to assume the role as franchise QB, and can he take the new-look Colts on the fast track to competing in the AFC South? Look, this is not the strongest division in the world, okay? He can come in, beat the Jaguars twice, split with the Texans, beat Tennessee twice, split with Tennessee. Who knows? Even if he doesn't beat Houston this year, which is going to be a tough task, tough to ask that man to beat the defending AFC South champions. But say if he doesn't beat them, but he beats Tennessee once and beats Jacksonville twice. He's 3-3 in the division in his first season. You'll take 3-3. And they can beat Tennessee twice with the news that they're starting Jake Locker. They can beat Tennessee twice. They can beat Jacksonville twice. That's 4-2 in the division. You'll take that. This team has the chance to go in and not win the division right off the bat. But they've got a chance to make some noise in that division because that division isn't that strong. It just really isn't. There's headway to be made in that division. And so Luck can come in and help these guys win right away. But the question is, it's a long road ahead of this Indianapolis Colts team. There's a long road ahead of them. And so the question is, can he take them on a few shortcuts? Can he get them to being a good team faster because of his ability? That remains to be seen, but he'll take that first step in 2012. So we move on to the hypothesis, and it reads as such. If Andrew Luck is the man, the Colts mix-match parts fit together, and Chuck Pagano is perfect in his first year as head coach, then the Colts could challenge for a AFC wildcard spot. Not out of the realm of possibility. I tell you this, and I say this, all jokes aside, with a serious face. The AFC is not that strong of a conference, okay? It's top heavy, and after that, there's spots to be had. And so if your schedule is something that is not overbearing, and I don't think that the Colts have an overbearing schedule, again, you look at a schedule and first blush, you go off of what the team was a year ago. You can't do that, but that's what we do when we look at a schedule. And so we're going to say, yeah, the Colts are going to be 5-11, 6-10. But honestly, the games are played on the field. And if Andrew Luck goes out and plays anywhere near how he's played in this preseason, if Chuck Pagano can be a near perfect head coach in his first season, which is hard to do. I mean, you got game management. You got to decide things, decisions on fourth down, whether to go for it, whether to punt, whether to kick a field goal. These are decisions that you have to learn as a head coach, how your team will respond if you don't make the right decision. And these are things that you can only learn through experience. And so it's hard to gauge what you should and shouldn't do in your first season because you don't know how your team's going to react. If you go for it on 4th and inches from the other team's 45-yard line, can your defense respond if you don't pick it up? Or is that team going to pick up 3 first downs and score a touchdown on the 4th play after not getting that first down? If you go for it on 4th and goal from the 2-yard line after a 12-play 77-yard drive and you don't make it, is that going to deflate your team? Is your opposition going to take the ball and go 98 yards down the field and score a touchdown because your team can't handle not getting that first down? These are things you have to learn as a coach. Is your team good enough to overcome those types of obstacles? Or do you just need to take the 3 points? Kick the ball off and let your team play defense from the 22-yard line. These are all things you have to figure out about your football team that you can't know just off of first blush. You got to experience these things. And game management is such a big thing in your first season because you got to know when to throw that challenge flag. You got to know when to call a timeout, how to manage the 2-minute drills at the end of both halves. And so these are things that sometimes don't come natural to coaches, but they get better as they are a coach in this league for longer periods of time. And so you look at Chuck Pagano, I don't think he can be perfect in his first season. And so it's going to be tough. But all that aside, this division is there for the taking if the Colts can find a way to get production out of Luck, get the defense to be better, and Chuck Pagano as a head coach is better. As we move on to materials needed, we start out with no luck here, just pure skill. And so Andrew Luck is telling everyone, and his performance in the preseason has said the exact same thing. This is no luck here. This is pure skill. He's going to get it done in the National Football League. It's only a matter of time before he's able to put this Colts franchise on his back and lead them to victory. Right now, he's just trying to assimilate into the NFL game, the speed of the game, learning the playbook, getting his feet wet, learning the nuances of the NFL game. But as far as Andrew Luck is concerned, there's no luck. It's just pure skill. You move on. No problemo Pagano. And look, this is a serious issue for the Colts because, again, this is the head coach that they've selected to take them to the next phase of Indianapolis Colts football. And so Chuck Pagano has a big task in front of him as far as leading this Indianapolis Colts team to where they want to go. And it all starts with him. He's the coach. He's the tone setter. He's the guy that's going to get these guys ready and prepared to play on Sundays. And he's the one who's going to have to figure out what 53 guys he wants on his roster and who's going to be able to perform for him on Sundays. And so again, it's a lot being an NFL head coach. It's a reason why there are only 32 positions in the league for head coaches, and guys are in the league for 30, 40 years and never get a shot to be a head coach. It's a tough job, and not everyone can do it. And so Chuck Pagano has to come in, manage Andrew Luck correctly. His first job, his first objective as head coach of the Indianapolis Colts is to come in and make this locker room conducive to breeding Andrew Luck into a Pro Bowl, All-Pro type quarterback. He has to make this locker room conducive to making Andrew Luck a better football player. After he can do that, he has to surround Andrew Luck with talent that is going to allow him to maintain that status in the league for years to come. And so right now, I don't think that that's going to happen in the first year. It's just so hard to do that. Again, your resources are so limited in your first season. All he can do is come in and coach up what he has, and then he'll move forward from there. But what he wants to do this year is definitely get his players to buy into what he is selling as a head coach. Get them to sell out for him on the field on Sundays and put the best product that he can on the field on Sundays to try to get victories for the Indianapolis Colts. You move on. Squeeze the rag dry. Squeeze that talent out of that rag and get as much of it as you can, because there's not a lot there. I'm not going to lie to you. That rag is not damp with a lot of talent. So you squeezing that rag, you might barely get enough to wet your palate with. There's not a lot there. So you can squeeze that rag and get as much as you can out of this team, because in your first year, you take whatever you can get. You basically take leftovers. You've got table scraps right now that you're dealing with. And it's going to be hard because you can't get the guys that fit your scheme that are going to buy into what you want to do in year one. You can't do it. It's just impossible to do. So a lot of times when coaches get a head coaching job, they don't inherit the Pittsburgh Steelers like Mike Tomlin did. Coaches don't retire. They get fired. And so when you get a coach that gets fired, that team is normally bad. And when you get a bad team, and in this case, they blew up the whole operation. They blew it up, and they're starting all over. And so when you start all over, you have to assemble positions and players one by one, brick by brick by brick. And so when you're doing that, you have to start somewhere. And so your rag, your talent rag is very, very dry right now. So squeeze every drop out of that rag in the 2012 season. Get what you can and hope that that's enough to get you 4, 5, 6 W's. Good luck. Freeney and Mathis, just try. And this is a tough one, because when you've been doing something and being great at it for such a long time, and someone comes along and tells you, okay, stop doing what made you great and do this. That's essentially what happened to Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis. Now, I know I've heard them say that they're anxious and they're looking forward to the challenge of doing something different. Trust me, they much rather have their hands in the ground coming after the quarterback on 3rd and 7 versus standing up on 2nd and 8. And so it's going to be rough, because this is a hard transition to make when you've been doing something and been good at it for a long time. To me, Mathis looks more ready to make that change than Freeney does. He looks like a natural bender. And we know Mathis can bend. He's a wiry guy with a frame that lends itself to being able to play outside linebacker. I think he's got the athleticism. I think he'll be fine. I worry about Freeney, though. His center of gravity is much lower. He's a guy that's built low to the ground, stocky. He's a 6-footer, just like James Harrison and Elvis Dumersville. But the thing about those guys is this is what they do. This is what they've been doing. Freeney has been doing it in a different capacity with his hand in the ground. These guys specialize in coming off the edge and jacking guys up and pushing them into the quarterback, which Freeney can still do. But This is what they've been trained to do. This is what they've done throughout their career. Freeney has not, and so this transition is going to be tough. I tell you what, I give you what I saw in the Pittsburgh game. I give you an example of why this is going to be a tough transition for Freeney. Ben Roethlisberger early on in that game did a boot, a fake handoff and a bootleg out and scrambled for about a 2-yard gain. And Freeney was clueless. He went after the fake. He bit it down harder than Snow White on an apple. He bit down on that fake, went into the pile, and had no clue that Roethlisberger had the ball until the play was over, essentially. Roethlisberger had already given himself up on a slide, and Freeney had just noticed, oh, Ben Roethlisberger has the ball on the quarterback keep. And so these are things that he's going to have to adjust to, and so it's going to be a long season for Dwight Freeney. But look, Freeney and Mathis, just try to be a shell of your former self. Just try. All right, you move on. Just get better. Just get better. You were bad on offense. You were bad on defense. You were bad as a team. When you go 2-14, you were bad in every facet of the game. And so your job, your objective for the 2012 season, just get better. Andrew Luck is going to help you do that, but he doesn't play defense. He doesn't play special teams. Just get better. All right, let's go on to data. Andrew Luck, 3,095 passing yards, 19 to 23 touchdowns thrown, 9 to 11 interceptions, 61.2% completion percentage. Reggie Wayne, 75 to 83 catches, 1,015 receiving yards to 1,075 receiving yards, 5 to 7 touchdowns. Donald Brown, 250 to 290 carries for 1,085 to 1,115 rushing yards, 6 to 8 touchdowns. Colts tight ends, 69 to 75 catches, 820 to 865 yards, 6 to 9 touchdowns. Colts defense, and this is big, forced 23 to 26 turnovers. You only forced 17 last year. 23 to 26 is not a lot of turnovers in the National Football League. But when you had 17 a year ago, any plus over the number you had the year before, which was 17, any more than that is a step in the right direction. So 23, 24 turnovers in 2012, you will take that as a step in the right direction. Sacks, 33 to 37 sacks. Again, you were a team that used to get after the quarterback. You did not do that in 2012 or 11. You need to get back to that in 2012. As a team in the NFL, your goal should be to obtain no less than 30 sacks. If you can't get to 30, you have a problem, and your problem is you don't get to the quarterback enough. You don't get to the quarterback, you're not forcing turnovers via getting pressure on the quarterback, and so your defense usually struggles if you don't get pressure on the quarterback. Getting pressure on the quarterback leads to a lot of good things for a defense. And so your goal as a team in the NFL should be no less than 30 sacks. The Colts didn't reach 30 sacks last year. So getting 33 to 36 sacks, 37 sacks, that should be their goal, and that should be something that they should be able to attain if Freeney and Mathis are anything like they've been over the course of their careers. 21.1 points per game. Look, you gave up 26.9, essentially 27 points. That equates to 3 touchdowns and 2 field goals, or 4 touchdowns, if you want to just round it up. You can't give up those kind of points, especially when you're the Colts, and this is not the Peyton Manning era. Okay, Peyton Manning used to put up 30 points a game, so you could do that. You can't afford those opportunities anymore. You're not afforded those opportunities because Andrew Luck and this offense isn't going to score 30 points a game. They're just not going to do it, at least not in their first season. And so you have to get that number down. 21.1 points is essentially 3 touchdowns. You'll take 3 touchdowns. That's still a lot of points, but hey, you'll take 3 touchdowns because Andrew Luck can muster up 3 touchdowns. Him and that offense will probably be able to get somewhere around there. And anytime you lower the amount of points you give up in any given game, you give yourself that much more of an opportunity to win. So you have to bring that number way down. Plays of 40 yards given up, 7 to 9. Again, that's right around the league average. Everybody wants to be there except for the Steelers and the Texans, who gave up 2 and 4 respectively. They want to keep that number down. But if everybody else in the league looks around, of course they want to bring their numbers down. But hey, everybody's going to be right around that 6 to 8 range. 7 to 9 for the Colts. in the 2012 season. So we move on to the independent variable, and it's real simple. Just get better at every facet of the game. You were bad last year. Bad to the point where you were 2-14, worst record in all of football. Get better. You do that, the dependent variable, you do that, the Colts will win more than 2 games in 2012. It's really simple. Get better on offense. Get better on defense. Get better at getting to the quarterback. Get better at getting turnovers. Get better at red zone defense. Get better at red zone offense. Get better at getting off the field on third downs. Get better as a team. You do that, you'll win more than 2 games. The constants for the Indianapolis Colts, simple. Reggie Wayne, Dwight Freeney, and Robert Mathis. These are the only 3 Colts truly left from the last era of Colts football, legitimately, that you can say these guys were in the trenches. They were around when the Colts started to rise and hit their ascension, culminating in the Super Bowl victory in 2006. And so these guys have been around. They went back to the Super Bowl in 2009, came up short, or 2010 came up short against the Saints. But these guys know what it takes to win. And so they're going to be the veteran leaders on his team because they've been there. They've been to the top of the mountain. They know what it feels like. They know what it takes to get there. And so these rookies are going to have to rely on them heavily to guide them to whatever success that they have. And so these are your constants if you're the Indianapolis Colts. Reggie Wayne, Dwight Freeney, Robert Mathis. Look, so we go on to the conclusion, and look, this is life without Peyton Manning has officially begun. That chapter is now closed, and the Colts have went to the extreme. They purged the roster from top to bottom, and so this is a different football team. And again, anytime you start over brand new, it's going to be a bumpy ride. It's going to take a while for you to get where you want to be. And it's Chuck Pagano's job to get this franchise moving in the right direction. He has to get players to buy into his system, set the tone. This is what we expect of an Indianapolis Colt. And get guys to come in and do whatever it takes to get the job done. And so, look, it's going to be a long road ahead of the Colts to get back to the point where they were under Peyton Manning, where they were winning 10, 11, 12, 13 games a season. Every year, you knew the Colts were going to be in the playoffs. It's just, where were they going to be seated? Okay? They were going to have when the tickets were printed for the playoffs to the dance, the Colts already had their name on one of them. It's just, where were they going to be seated at the dance? Where were they going to be at? And so it's going to be a long road to getting back to that point. However, I will say this. Andrew Luck looks like a guy that's going to be able to take you down a few shortcuts. Okay? Now I have this team going 5-11. The Luck era starts with a 5-11 start. Again, step in the right direction. You won 2 games last year. But look, I'm going to tell you this now. Hear me now. Hear me later. I'm going to say it. Andrew Luck has the ability to take this long road that you're going down right now and cut through a few shortcuts. All right? Cut through a couple back roads that can land you a lot faster onto Lombardi Lane. Okay? It's a long road. You can't even see the sign that says Lombardi Lane 10 miles away. You can't see that sign right now. It's not in your view. Okay? However, with Andrew Luck as your quarterback, if you take care of him, get him weapons, if Chuck Pagano is the coach that he looks like he can be, with Andrew Luck as your quarterback, it's a couple of shortcuts that a lot of teams aren't afforded, that they don't know about. It's a couple of shortcuts out there, and I'm telling you right now, you might bypass a few exits, go around a few teams, but in a short period of time, you could be 5, 2, 3 miles away from Lombardi Lane. And you can be knocking on that door pretty soon. You got a guy in Andrew Luck that could lead you there and fast. But this thing is going to take time, and you're going to have to get him some talent around him. Right now, that's not the case. And again, it's your first season, so stay tuned. But if you're a Colts fan, you got the right guy running your team for the next 10 years in Andrew Luck. And that's going to do it for the Colts. We're going to go to our lab quiz. On the other side of that break, we'll come back and we'll talk Jacksonville Jaguars. I'll see you in a bit.
Lab quiz. Lab quiz.
And we're back in the lab room, and as we come back, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. And this is a team that, on the surface in 2011, they looked like straight garbage, straight trash. It was a hard watch at times. But you dig beneath the surface, and you delve in a little bit, and you look at this team and what they did last year, and you look at the defensive side of the ball, this was a good football team, especially on defense. Okay? The Jaguars were 9th in pass defense, 8th in rush defense. They were 6th in total defense overall in the National Football League last year. I don't think a lot of people know that about the 2011 Jacksonville Jaguars. They played defense. And I watched them a few times, especially against the Steelers. They were in ball games against them. Problem was, the offense wasn't any good. But look, we're talking strengths right now. That defense is a strength. They got it done on the defensive side of the football. They did everything that it took to win those 5 games that they won. That 5-11 mark was strongly in part to this defense. And really, they did enough on the defensive side of the ball to warrant more victories. But the offense would have none of it. No, we're not winning more games because we're not good. And that's what the offense did. They brought the defense down and the team as a whole because the offense was so bad. But this defense was a strength. They say in the NFL, a lot of times when you go on the road, you have to pack your defense and your run game. I like to think that you need to do that every week, no matter home or away. Pack your run game and your defense. Well, that leads us to our other strength for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the unquestioned strength of this team, without a doubt, their strongest strength is their running game, led by Maurice Jones-Drew. And look, he led the league in rushing last year. He was the one bright spot for an offense that at times was unwatchable, okay? This offense was barely competent in 2011, but Maurice Jones-Drew was the one silver lining in an offense that was putrid in every other facet of their game except running the football. And so he, without a doubt, is a strength for the Jaguars. Problem is, the Jaguars don't seem to think that his level of play warrants more money. I do. You have top backs in this league getting $7-8 million a year. This man is making $4 million, a little over $4 million a year. And now look, you know, the common lay fan will say, look, he's making money, shut up, go play. Again, the running back position is a position in the league that you are a comet. You are a big, gigantic, galactic star. You burn bright for 4, 5, 6 seasons, and then just like the greatest star, you flame out. You explode, and then your career is over at 30. And so you got to get your money when it's there to be got. He is such a huge percentage of their offense. He's all they had on offense last year, and teams still couldn't stop him. And so he needs to be compensated properly for what he contributes and what he does for this football team. And so while $4 million is not chump change, it's not enough for a guy who does what he does for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so you look around the league at guys like Matt Forte and Chris Johnson and Fred Jackson, all these other running backs, Adrian Peterson, who are getting big money, who just got paid by their respective ball clubs. They're all making $8 million or more a season. Ray Rice included. He had to think about holding out. Matt Forte had to think about holding out because they couldn't get their money. Backs are treated unfairly in this league because people like to go with the dime a dozen theory. Hey, backs come a dime a dozen. If that were the case, everyone would have multiple backs that can get it done in this league. And the fact of the matter is, everyone doesn't have a back that can get it done in the league. Everyone doesn't even have one back that can get it done in this league, let alone two. And so Maurice Jones-Drew, MJD, needs to be compensated. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are in the wrong here. And look, they're in a holdout right now. These two, Maurice Jones-Drew and the Jacksonville Jaguars right now are in a nasty dispute over his contract. And he is under contract legally right now, but he's not coming in. And I don't see this thing ending up well for the Jaguars. I really don't see him wanting to come back and play football for them unless they pay him. And their new owner has come out and said, look, we're not paying you. You're under contract. Either you show up or we're leaving without you. This train is leaving without you. Hey, run, get on the train. We're taking off. And so if you're MJD, you don't want to hear that. You want to hear, give me my money. Please pay me. I deserve it. And so it's unfortunate that the best that the Jacksonville Jaguars has to offer from a player standpoint, their strength, their strongest strength, is probably not going to be a part of their roster in 2012. Good luck with that one, Jacksonville. Because Rashad Jennings, nice young guy, not MJD. Not even close. Good luck. All right. So you go to weaknesses now. And you start with Blaine Gabbert. This guy was a colossal mess last year. And it's funny because his numbers don't bear that out. You look at his numbers. He threw 12 touchdown passes, only 11 interceptions. But if you watched him play football last year, he looked like a deer caught in headlights. He looked lost at times. It looked like the NFL game was too fast for him. He looked overmatched as an NFL quarterback last year as a rookie. And so you hope in 2012 he's a lot better, that he gets it, that the game has slowed down for him, because last year, and many times, he looked like he didn't belong as a starting quarterback in the National Football League. He was terrible. Out of all 32 quarterbacks, he had the worst passer rating of all quarterbacks. So literally, he was the worst in the league, literally. Numbers and statistics factually back that up. He was the worst quarterback in all of football last year. And there were 32 starting quarterbacks. He was ranked 33rd. So that means some other team had another guy come off the bench, get enough pass attempts to qualify for passer rating, and they went higher than Blaine Gabbert. So that speaks volumes as to how bad he was in 2011. So him being bad trickled down to the rest of the offense, and that's the next weakness. The next weakness is the whole Jacksonville Jaguars offense, running game, and Maurice Jones-Drew excluded. This offense was terrible. All right, they were terrible. Pass offense, they were terrible. Total offense ranked 28th. They only scored 15.2 points a game last year. That's a shade over 2 touchdowns. You're not going to win many games in the league like that. And so this team was bad on offense. Again, the defense was good enough to win games. The offense would have none of it. And so they have to be better on the offensive side of the football to win games, because the Jaguars were bad. The Jaguars' combination of an overmatched QB, lack of talent at receiver, and the uncanny ability to stifle themselves on offense was hard to watch last year, and that's why it was a weakness for the Jacksonville Jaguars in the 2011 season and moving into the 2012 season. You go on to camp battles. And the Jaguars, they need players at a lot of the skill positions. And the biggest one of note was wide receiver. They were starting a receiver named Delonte West last year. And me and my friend, we got a kick out of that. Who is this guy? Where did he come from? Why is he on the football field? They were bad at receiver last year. And the guy's name probably wasn't even Delonte West. His last name was West. And it was just funny because they looked bad out there at receiver. And we watched the Thursday night game last year against the Falcons. And that game got so out of control before the end of the first half that it was unwatchable in the second half. They were bad on offense last year. You look at the camp battles, and the first thing that comes to mind is the receiver position. And the Jags had to address it. They did. They went out, got a free agent, LaRon Robinson, from the Cowboys. They went out, used their first draft pick in the draft, their first round selection on a receiver, Justin Blackmon out of Oklahoma State. And so they addressed the wide receiver position immediately. Still, after those two, what do you have? What do you have? We're talking whether it's Mike Brown, undrafted rookie out of Liberty, Cecil Shorts III. He's out of Mount Vernon, so he's looking to ride the coattails of Pierre Garçon, who is the only receiver to ever make it out of Mount Vernon or Mount Union as a receiver. And so Cecil Shorts III, he's another guy in the mix. Brian Robisky, or just Mike Thomas, a guy that was supposed to be good that they gave money to last year, who just seems like he's going through the motions. The Jags need help at receiver. They got two of them. They need more. They need more weapons. And so that's definitely somewhere that, and it's a battle after the two receivers. It's a battle for every other spot after that. I just named all the guys that are in the mix. It's a battle. We don't know who's going to be in it, but who's going to end up where. But those are the participants. They're going to end up somewhere. Okay. Interesting camp battle for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's their backup quarterback. And so it was all but etched in stone that Chad Henne was going to be the backup to Blaine Gabbert this year. But Jordan Palmer, the younger brother of Oakland Raiders starter Carson Palmer, has come in and shown well in camp and in the preseason. And he's not willing to concede the fact that he's the third quarterback on his roster. He's making a strong push for the backup quarterback position. And so Chad Henne has to perform better, or else Jordan Palmer will take that second job and be the backup to Blaine Gabbert, who did not show well in 2011 and for all intents and purposes could be benched or get injured. And the second quarterback have to step in. And so Chad Henne must be careful because he's skating on thin ice in the league. He's had his chance to start. Now he's going to turn. If he doesn't pan out in Jacksonville, he will turn into a journeyman backup. That's your last step before you're out of the league. And so Chad Henne needs to win this backup position. We'll see as camp progresses who puts a stranglehold on that backup quarterback position. Another positional battle was that of fullback. And really, I think Greg Jones is your fullback in Jack. Until somebody physically removes Greg Jones from the Jacksonville Jaguars starting fullback position, he's the fullback. He's got competition from Brock Bolin, another fullback that's been on the roster for 3 years now. But I can't see anybody taking that spot from Greg Jones. Until somebody physically takes Greg Jones, and he's a big, big man. Till somebody physically grabs Greg Jones and removes him from the fullback position, that's his job to lose. So there you have it. Moving on to the rookie watch. The first round selection for the Jacksonville Jaguars was wide receiver Justin Blackmon out of Oklahoma State. We talked about him already. He's going to start day one for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You look at their second round selection, and this is an intriguing pick because I like this guy. Again, Clemson has been a breeding ground for defensive ends in the National Football League in recent years. Again, you look at the pick that the Jacksonville Jaguars just made, Andre Branch, very fast, quick, explosive defensive end that can get to the quarterback. He's a second-round draft choice. You look at the late Gaines Adams, who was a first-round selection. You look at last year, two more defensive linemen from Clemson. Jarvis Jenkins taken by the Redskins in the second round. And then you look at Daquan Bowers, a first-round selection of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're turning out defensive linemen at Clemson, and they're making a habit of it. And so this is another defensive lineman in the long list of Clemson defensive linemen who have come in and can make an impact in the National Football League. This is when you know you're a bad football team. When your third round selection is a punter. Yes, punter Brian Anger is their selection out of California, and they spent a third round selection on him. What that tells me is you know that you stink and that you will be punting a lot in the upcoming season, and therefore you need to make sure you have a punter who can flip field position. So you have plans of being inept on offense again, and so you need to make sure that your punter is in line to kick the ball very, very far away so that other teams will have to start their drive from deep in their own territory. That is a bad selection. Shame on you, Jacksonville Jaguars. You know better than that. You could have got this same punter in the 5th, 6th, possibly 7th round. You took him in the 3rd round, scared that someone else was going to take him. And that lets me know just how much confidence you have in your offense. Good for you, Jacksonville. 5th round selection, Brandon Marshall, outside linebacker, Nevada. Here's a guy that's not overly athletic. He made his way playing alongside James Michael Johnson, the linebacker that was taken in the earlier rounds of the draft by the Cleveland Browns. And so he played off of him. He's a solid linebacker, not going to wow you with his athleticism, but he makes sound plays. And so he'll look to be someone that contributes immediately on special teams and looks to crack that lineup somewhere in the near future. 6th round selection, cornerback Mike Harris out of Florida State. Very raw guy. He has the talent to be a solid corner in this league. I don't like his speed. I don't think he's fast enough. I don't think he has the quick twitch fibers that you look for in a corner. But he possesses all the attributes, the footwork, the ability to have, to have fluid hips, to get in and out of his breaks, to challenge receivers. I think he has all the intangibles to be a good corner, but he has to put it together, and he has to be smarter than the receiver that he's guarding because, again, his athletic ability is in terms of speed is not what you would like out of your cornerback. And so he has to be able to anticipate better than most corners because he doesn't have makeup speed to burn. 7th round selection, Jarris Pendleton, defensive tackle out of Ashland. This is the Jaguars looking for a diamond in the rough. This is their crack staff, their scouting unit looking for a guy at a small school, that can come in provide depth and possibly look to start down the road. They're hoping that their scouting department did a great job in going to a small school and finding a gem for them. He's going to make the roster. They like Jarris Pendleton a lot, and they're going to look to create this guy as a project, but make him better, make him and mold him into the defensive tackle that they want him to be. With that, we move on to the experiment, and I titled this, Jags Are On. Anybody watching? Anybody? You? No? Okay. The Jaguars are a hard watch. I'm going to go on record to say that the Jacksonville Jaguars are the most irrelevant team in the National Football League. If they were to go away tomorrow, no one would notice. Probably wouldn't notice. Wouldn't be a blip on the radar. I'm over-exaggerating, of course, but Maurice Jones-Drew is holding out and no one is talking about it. You know why? Because he plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Nobody is paying attention to Jaguars affairs. You know why no one is paying attention? Because they're irrelevant. You know why they're irrelevant? Because they make irrelevant moves. And they play in Jacksonville. That's a college football state and town. They are surrounded by college football fanatics down there. They could care less about the NFL. And so the Jaguars continuously make irrelevant moves, though. You look at their third-round selection, they took a punter. Who does that? That's an irrelevant move. You ask them and they think that's a good move. Yeah, that's a great pick. No, it's not. Okay? You look at their head coach. Normally when an NFL team hires a coach, it's big news. That's something that you hear about and you go, wow, that's interesting. Okay, that's who they hired. All right. Even if you don't know who the coach is, you might be prompted to find out who that guy is. The Raiders hired Dennis Allen. Who's that guy? Oh, he was the defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos. Oh, okay. Interesting. You know who the Jaguars hired? Ex-Bills head coach Mike Mularkey. Okay. Moving on. That's what people do when they hear that. Other teams hire Mike Shanahan. Other teams hire Chuck Pagano. The Jaguars hire Mike Mularkey, a retread. Interesting. Research question. Is Blaine Gabbert the answer at quarterback for the Jaguars? And is Maurice Jones-Drew going to be a part of this franchise in 2012 and moving forward? The latter part of that question, I highly doubt it as of right now. This relationship is being strained more and more as each day passes. And the Jaguars as a franchise are doing irreparable damage to the relationship with Maurice Jones-Drew. And all he wants is his fair share. He wants his fair market value. He wants a fair deal. He's not asking them to break the bank. He just wants what he deserves. And rightfully so. And so this thing isn't going to end pretty. I wouldn't be surprised if he got traded. I think that would fit both parties. It would suit both parties well. I think that would be the best fit. If you're not going to pay him, don't drag this thing along, make him possibly have to sit out. Let the man play football. If you're not going to pay him, send him somewhere where he will get his money. You get picks in return and everyone's happy. Blaine Gabbert, is he the man? We're going to find out in 2012. He's looked good. In his defense, he's looked good in the preseason thus far. He hasn't looked great. He's looked good. He's looked steady. He looks to be making improvements. Numbers aren't mind-boggling. They're not eye-popping, but they're steady numbers. They're showing growth. They're showing that the game isn't too fast for him. He's getting the ball out of his hands quicker, which they need to do with him. I like it. Let's see if he can continue that throughout the preseason into the regular season. Be consistent doing it. Hypothesis. If Blaine Gabbert starts to take steps in the right direction, MJD shows up to play for the Jaguars and the offense improves dramatically, then the Jacksonville Jaguars will be able to take a step towards competing in the AFC South. Again, I don't think MJD is coming back. I don't think this offense is going to improve dramatically. I do think Blaine Gabbert is going to be better in 2012. He can't be much worse. He was the worst last year. And so, don't really see them being big players in the AFC South this year. But if Blaine Gabbert can turn out to be a solid pick for them moving forward, and they build around the receivers that they drafted, Rashad Jennings proves to be a young back that could step in and do some things for them, maybe. But won't happen in 2012. Materials needed. Hey, Blaine, one step at a time. Blaine Gabbert was terrible last year. And not from a number standpoint, just from watching him. He looked uncomfortable. He looked skittish in the pocket. He looked confused. And so, one thing at a time. Get your completion percentage up. Throw for more touchdowns. These are all steps that you need to be taking gradually. We're looking for baby steps. Okay? Read defenses. Become intricate in your thought process. Look at that linebacker. He's dropping into zone. Okay? Don't force the football there. If he's there, no one's over there. Throw the football where no one is. One step at a time. Read defenses. Throw for a higher completion percentage. More touchdown passes. Less interceptions. Less blunders. Less thinking, more doing. One step at a time, Blaine. One step at a time. Hey, Jags, pay the man. As Deion Sanders eloquently puts it, pay the man. Get this man his money. Stop with the shenanigans. Pay this man, please. He deserves to be compensated for what he does for the Jacksonville Jaguars franchise. You take him off of your football team, you're completely irrelevant. You're already irrelevant as it is. But at least you have one player that is a household name. You take Pocket Hercules off your team and you're completely irrelevant. You might as well pack up your show and move to California. Move to Los Angeles. Move anywhere for that matter. But get him, pay the man, please. Who's at receiver again? Doesn't matter. Never mind. Just make plays. I don't care. I don't know who's at receiver. You know, after Laurent Robinson, after Justin Blackman. Nor do I care. Just step up and do something noteworthy. Help your team win football games. I don't know. I don't care who your receivers are. I don't care if it's Kanye West. I don't care if it's Mike Thomas, Brian Robisky. I don't know who it is. I don't care who it is. Make plays. Do you realize that the Jags are at home this week? You know they're on TV, right? I'm talking to you, Jags fans. You do know the Jags have a home game this week, right? You know that, right? I'm tired of the Jacksonville Jaguars being subject to a blackout every single week. I know that they're irrelevant around the nation. I know they're around the NFL landscape. If you're not a Jacksonville Jaguar fan, you don't care about the Jaguars. But you as Jacksonville Jaguar fans should care enough to go and support your team enough so that they don't have blackouts every week. I know you don't care that they're on. Neither do we. Somebody has to care though. So support the Jaguars. Why don't you? Help them out a little bit. Or if not, then just completely shut it down so they can pack up and move. But something has to be done. Data. Blaine Gabbert, 2,725 passing yards, 17 to 19 touchdowns, 10 to 12 picks, 56.8% completion percentage. That completion percentage is not where you want it to be. But when it was 51 a year ago, you'll take 56, close to 57 in year 2. Justin Blackman, 57 and 61 catches, 710 and 760 receiving yards, 6 to 8 touchdowns. Laurent Robinson, 49 to 57 catches, 620 to 700 receiving yards, 6 to 8 touchdowns. Mercedes Lewis, 47 to 53 catches, 610 to 660 receiving yards, 3 to 6 touchdowns. Do you realize that Mercedes Lewis had 10 touchdowns in 2010? You know how many he had in 2011 with Blaine Gabbert as quarterback? You know what your IQ is, buddy? That's right, 0. That old Mike Ditka line. 0. That man had 0 touchdown catches last year. How do you do that? How does a man go from 10 in one season to 0 in the next season? That's hard to fathom. Get Mercedes, your 6'7" tight end, the football in the red zone. That makes absolutely no sense that he had no touchdowns last year. Rashad Jennings. And he shouldn't be on this list. This list should have Maurice Jones-Drew on it. But Rashad Jennings is on the list by default. 225 to 250 carries, 995 to 1,060 rushing yards, 6 to 8 touchdowns. Jags defense. You were good last year. I don't have many complaints about you. Forced 29 to 33 turnovers, 36 to 40 sacks, 19.7 points per game, 6 to 8 plays of 40 yards given up. And that's going to move us into the independent variable. And look, Blaine Gabbert has the tools to be a credible quarterback in this league. He can be a viable passing option in this league. He doesn't have to be the worst quarterback. Okay, I saw him play several times last year. I saw flashes. I saw a guy that he can run, he can move. He's not a stiff back there. If pressure comes, he can get out of the pocket and make something happen with his legs. He's got arm strength. He's just got to be more decisive. And again, he was a rookie last year. You're going to make mistakes. He just looked really bad when he did make mistakes. And he compounded those mistakes by making more mistakes and looking even worse when he made future mistakes. So he just needs to be better. If Blaine Gabbert is better in 2012, the offense by default will be better. Now, missing Maurice Jones-Drew is not going to help your offense any. But Blaine Gabbert has to be better for this offense to be better. Your dependent variable, if the offense is better, then the defense actually has chances to play with a lead. Instead of having to play to just keep the game close enough so that they have a chance to win, they can actually play with a lead. They don't know what that feels like too often because they're always playing from behind because the offense is so stagnant. Blaine Gabbert in the offense is better in 2012. Then the defense gets to play better football, gets to play looser, gets to come after the quarterback, gets to play with a lead and hold on to leads. You win more games that way. Moving on to the constant. It was MJD. Now your constants are blackouts. Nobody was watching then, nobody's watching now. That leads us to our conclusion. And so the Jacksonville Jaguars are irrelevant on the NFL landscape. I've already spoke to that, and I wouldn't just wrap it up with this. They're irrelevant on the NFL landscape right now. And so they got a long way to go. They got a new head coach. They got a quarterback that's trying to find his way in this league. And one thing that you could count on is no longer on your roster right now as we speak. And looking at it right now, looking at the situation, he's probably not going to be on your roster moving forward. Hopefully you get that done because you need him. Your team is not a good football team without him. I mean, with him, you were a 5-11 team. Without him, I have you going 3-13 is what I have you doing. And so the Jacksonville Jaguars have new head coach Mike Mularkey. He's more of a passing head coach. But their quarterback isn't ready to take on that position yet. And so they need to rely on the running game. Can you do that without Maurice Jones-Drew? I don't know. But all in all, there's good news and there's bad news for the Jacksonville Jaguars. The bad news is they're going to be a 3-13 football team. They're not good at all. And the good news is you don't have to worry about it because no one's watching anyway. So that'll wrap it up for the Jacksonville Jaguars. As tomorrow we'll move on to a new conference, back to the NFC, and to a new division, the NFC West. And we'll continue on these two-a-days. I thank you for joining me again, and I want to say that's a touchdown. Throw them up. Let me tack on a quick extra point with this. Hard Knocks is going to be on. The third installment will be on tonight. And so, again, you know how I feel about Hard Knocks. So great watch. Check it out. I'm gonna talk about it. Don't want you to be lost. It's a great program. Interesting to see where they move forward after the Chad Johnson release. What direction did this program take? After the release of Chad Johnson. And look, this Hard Knock series was not going to be just Chad Johnson. There were other storylines that they were building up, and so they're going to be able to move forward from the Chad Johnson release without any problem. But I just want to see how they're going to do it. So check out Hard Knocks. And I'll be back on Wednesday to talk about Hard Knocks and what I saw and just how good of a program it is. You know how I feel about Hard Knocks. And again, that'll do it for this episode in the Lab Room. I thank you for joining me again. As always, you can drop something in the inbox at inthelabroom@gmail.com. Like me on Facebook. Facebook page is In the Lab Room. Again, I'm on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at In the Lab Room. That's the Twitter handle. And again, I'll be here tomorrow. Same time, same place. I'm out.